Sorry, I didn't know your dad. Things was tense after the attack. We hung with our own. But your father's story is now your story, and you gotta keep telling it. Your daddy was in the engine room. I was the chief cook in charge of the galley. My ovens was cranking 24 hours a day. Sailors are chow hounds when they're scared. Half of the 600 sailors on board was off on shore leave. The rest of the guys was packed in as tight as wallpaper on a wall, snoozing up in the deck, playing craps, or watching some cowboy picture. Hard not to conk out in that warm jasmine air. Next morning, the church bells woke us up to a pink and gold sunrise sparkling across the harbor. Palm fronds blowing in the breeze. Those native gals smelled like flowers. It was real sweet. Our ship was stripped clean. No guns, no engines, no generators, no nothing. Even our electricity came from the naval yard. The USS Regal was sitting like a duck, nestled under a big hammerhead crane. A blind man couldn't have missed us. I remember, it was 7:55. I'd just put me 100 pumpkin pies in the oven. A couple of loud explosions rocked the ship. The air raid sirens started blaring. For a second, I thought it was the daily drill. Then I thought I heard machine gun fire. And there was this unbearable noise. I rushed up towards the topside ladder, just as blood started trickling down the steps. As I hit the deck, I saw the sailors that had been raising Old Glory and rolling up their sleeping gear had been sprayed with gunfire. A gray plane dived in real close. I looked up and saw a Japanese meatball on the wing. Loudspeakers crackled. "Attention, this is no exercise. Report to duty. The Japanese are now attacking Pearl Harbor." I froze and started praying. Jesus, please don't let me die. I'm pretty sure there were no atheists in Pearl Harbor that day. Then a wave of planes came flying straight up the channel in a low V formation, dropping torpedoes about 20 feet above us. I looked up and caught a pilot's eye. I swear the SOB smiled back at me. As they turned away from us, the red insignia on the upper and lower sides of the wings stood out like balls of hellfire. The first attack was so sudden, nobody had time to gear up and fire back. Dive bombers were coming at us in every direction. The water in the harbor was blowing up. Fire bombs exploding all over the place. We were surrounded by flames and burning oil. Shelling was moving closer into our ship. My battle station was back in the galley. The boat was rocking like a carnival ride. I hugged the walls back to the kitchen and started locking things down. An explosion rammed me up against the wall. I looked out the porthole at Battleship Row just as the Oklahoma was hit by 2 torpedoes. She blew up right in front of me and started listing. Her sailors had no choice but to dive into the burning oil slicks and try to swim through the boiling water back to the beach at Ford Island. Many of those boys just became human torches. The California went next, sending a firebomb 800 feet into the air. Attack horns were screaming. A bomb hit our stern, lifted the ship up 50 feet, exploded and dropped us with a loud whoomp. My pies came soaring out of the oven. The galley was swimming in pumpkin. Rounds of shrapnel tore into our hull. The water started pouring in as I made my way back up to the deck. bombs raining all around us. A few of the ships got their defense together and returned fire. The Nevada's guns were blazing as she tracked out of the channel and met a heavy barrage of dive bombers that swooped down and poured continuous fire on her until she was beached. The Pennsylvania and the Tennessee exploded like volcanoes. The winds forced the burning oil slicks towards the surviving ships. I knew we was getting killed. The sailor next to me buckled in half and started puking his guts out as he dragged an injured shipmate out of harm's way. Then just like that, it all stopped. 100 minutes of death and destruction. The only sound left was sailors screaming for their lives in pain. Pearl burned black smoke for 3 weeks after the attack. It stunk of metal and men who pledged allegiance and died. That night was dark. The only light came from the Arizona as she burned. I can't never forget the Morse code tapping sounds of the sailors that were trapped inside that ship. The heroes, those are those guys that never made it home. Anyone alive on December 7th, 1941, remembers where they were when Pearl got attacked. That day changed the world forever. After that battle, we were shipped out to destination unknown. I rode next to a destroyer combing the Pacific floor looking for Japanese mines. It was a white-knuckle trip. Every second was terrifying. I kept cooking as fast as I could. Boys can't fight without solid chow. I stayed on the USS Regal from 41 until 45. After that, I served on every kind of vessel the Navy had. It was my home. I never had a family till I enlisted. I was just an orphan farm boy from Texas. A lot of guys like me in the military. I saw a poster outside the post office that said, "Join the Navy and see the world." I'm still waiting. I retired in 1951, but I miss being on a ship in the middle of the ocean with a bunch of sailors. One morning I felt so alone, I just up and re-enlisted. Now, I did me 41 years, 11 months, and 26 days. Why I didn't do another 4 days and make it 42 years, you go figure. I was real bad hungover one day, killing time while I was waiting on my new orders. I walked into a coffee shop in Lubbock. Snappy little redhead was taking orders at the other end of the counter. I said, "Hey, Bright Eyes, bring me a cup of coffee." She cracked right back at me. "Really? Right now, or when I get around to you?" I laughed and yelled, "Honey, I will not have the future mother of my children talking to me like that." I kept going back even though her coffee was lousy. Sonny would slip pictures of her big brothers on the counter and smile. That woman could make a bulldog bust his chains. We got hitched 6 weeks later, just before I shipped out. I found a letter she sent me on February 14th, 1942. I'll read it to you. "Dear Roy, just call me your shipyard babe, 4 p.m. till midnight, 70 cents an hour. And now that I'm able to save my money, it adds up to $145.60 a week. And in 2 months, I'm up for a raise if I'm any good. But don't you worry about that, honey. Welding is just like crocheting. And you know what a talent I have for that. Honey, I was thinking now, if we have a boy Everyone is getting circumcised these days. Are you circumcised, Roy? I feel as big as a barn. It feels like I got a pony curled up in my belly. One of those Jap gals stormed out of the plant in a huff today. Said I dropped a tool on her foot. I saw her sitting in the cafeteria writing in a funny language. She said she was writing my name in Japanese. Maybe I ought to tell the FBI. I got the car fixed, that dang water hose. I actually looked under the hood. I'm really becoming quite an independent woman. I know you're going to need at least a couple of weeks to recover from the mess you've seen over there. But I'll take good care of you. I got to run and help Mom. Really was a good idea to move back home. Some of the other wives are real lonely out there on that base. But you don't have to worry about me. I'm yours forever. Love, your very own Shipyard Valentine. Well, Sonny popped out Willie 9 months after we got married. I was stuck out in Korea. I didn't get to meet my son until he was almost 4 years old. Our 56th anniversary coming up now. We had a real good time. We just crank up that RV and take off. Been all over the Western Front. Willie graduated Annapolis. Dang good Navy pilot. Handsome in that lieutenant's uniform. When I was recruiting for Vietnam, I enlisted him. You ever hear of the Navy Memorial in Washington, D.C.? You can put your dad's name on it if you like. Oh God, there I go recruiting again. Well, it only cost 25 bucks. And they got a pool in front of the memorial filled with water from all the seas all over the world. And a bronze statue of a second-class boatsman stands and watch. That's where I put my boy's ashes. Thank you.